Hey, how's it going? It's your boy, Challenger Coach Mortiarty here to bring you our Pick of the Patch video for 10.4, where experts choose our favorite staple and up-and-coming picks. So without any further delays, let's jump right into it. Our first pick of the patch will be a champion you all know to be pretty OP in the jungle, but gets less attention in mid lane, where he's honestly also extremely strong, and that's EKKO. Recently, an EKKO mid main reached rank 1 on the North American server with around a 70% win rate on the champion, though he does play a jungle as well, and probably you're still not convinced because it's NA, but it's an extremely popular pick on Chinese solo queue as well. The reason for that is EKKO mid lane has no real losing matchups besides maybe Kassadin. This means that at least in solo queue, you can blind prick him pretty easily, making him a great champion to main. I understand he's got some not good matchups, but they're all pretty playable, alright? Aside from his blind pick status, he perfectly suits the current push and roam mid lane style that is so dominant in solo queue, capable of easily diving side lanes whenever his ultimate is up. Especially off of bot lane, because for whatever reason, whenever you roam to bot lane, even when it's through a bunch of wards, they tend to never leave tower or back off for whatever reason, so you can just dive them over and over again and tilt them pretty easily. That means you'll want to pick up EKKO as an assassin mid lane pick that scales pretty decently and can even teamfight, unlike champions like LeBlanc, giving him extreme versatility for solo queue at the moment. He's got no clear weaknesses in terms of stages of the game where he could be weak, as well as no major draft weaknesses, and like Diana, he can be considered an anti-assassin, which is pretty powerful at the moment. Next up, you've likely seen this champion in your games recently. As his play rate has skyrocketed, we've got Ezreal. Due to his buffs and a new setup, which I somewhat don't condone, Ezreal is making his comeback into the meta, making everyone who doesn't play him pretty sad. Ezreal has once again become an extremely popular pick in both competitive and in high elo solo queue over the last couple weeks, especially in combination with Yuumi or Orin, who are on the rise in their own right. The Letho Tempo setup, upon some further research from me, does perform well in shorter games, and it's a more lane dominant style than his normal setup with Conquer, which explains why pros like it so much in solo queue, as snowballing early on an ADC that normally doesn't snowball is pretty appealing. That means you'll want to pick up Ezreal if you can actually land skill shots. I'm serious about this one. Be honest with yourself about this, alright? If you don't, you'll be harming your own LP gains and your teammates' sanity from watching you miss all your Qs. Now that I'm done having to recommend Ezreal, I'll do the only justifiable, morally correct decision and suggest our next champion, Jhin. The reason why that this is such a holy recommendation is he's actually a really strong lane counter to Ezreal if picking Vayne isn't your thing. As a Jhin player myself, I can confirm that this is his overall best lane matchup, and the reason for it is not only does he have the push advantage in lane, but due to his high movement speed, it's really easy to dodge Ezreal's skill shots. And with more upfront burst than Ezreal, you can actually just force him to shift away and retreat. Normally at this point in time, ADCs can't really kill Ezreal, but with Jhin W and R, you can actually just snipe him out and kill overly passive Ezreal players who just sit back and spam Q for farm. Not to mention, later in the game it gets even worse for Ezreal, as with rapid fire cannon and super speed from consistent crits coming in, he can't deal with Jhin at all, giving him the scaling advantage as well. So wait, Adam, are you telling me to pick up Jhin over just one matchup? That seems really dumb. Yeah, I am telling you to do that because he's got a 25% pick rate already, and it's only going to go up from here, so it's a worthwhile pick because Jin's doing pretty well on his own regardless. It wouldn't be a 10.4 pick the patch video without some tanks, so we got Tree Man Maokai coming at you. With big changes coming into Sunfire, it allows champions that have reliable mobilizing effects to have a big boost in effectiveness. Maokai's got 3 sources of mobilizing effects. He's got his Q, he's got his W, and he's got his R. This makes him one of the biggest winners of the changes to Sunfire, and it's already a core item to begin with. We expect this to give Maokai a good damage boost this patch, allowing him to have damage to win lane while also being great scaling late game tank. Don't get me wrong, obviously Maokai isn't the God King tank Orin, who is so strong in this patch he's likely viable in 5 roles, but Maokai is holding his own, and he's arcane smashing nerds right now with a 53% win rate, even in Plat Plus. You'll want to pick up Maokai if you hate Riven and Darius players, because those are some free matchups. Darius being slightly harder, of course, as you'll need to time your W to dodge his Q and then save your Q to disengage, but it's not even remotely difficult to do that. Just toss in a Mordekaiser ban and everything is pretty manageable for the tree. At this point in time, it's almost a requirement to include Orin in a 10.4 video, as he might be one of the single strongest champions on this patch. He might not be the single strongest champion, but he's definitely the single strongest tank on this patch. And yes, I have been hyping up the Orin a lot recently, but he's just isn't balanced at the moment, and I don't say that very often. He's a late game scaling champion who has 2 losing matchups, Soraka and Sona, pretty much the same thing, and then also Singed. But wait, there's more about Orin. He is a late game scaling tank who is capable of CC locking someone until they die with only 1 or 2 items in one rotation. What is that? I'm normally okay with tanks being unkillable like Sion or Maokai and having absurdly annoying amounts of CC, then killing you over multiple rotations and you feel like you can't do anything. That makes sense. That's a tank. But when a tank like Orin is killing you in one combo with his ultimate, that doesn't seem right. To put this in perspective, Kassadin is a late game scaling assassin who isn't able to one rotation someone until most likely 3 items, but a late game scaling tank has more burst than him. You know what? I'm sounding a little salty here. I shouldn't complain. Apparently nothing wrong here according to Riot. Let's just move along. So if you want a single champion to pick up as a top laner in this patch, it's definitely Orin, who for some reason, despite the Sunfire buffs coming in and already being an S tier champion, he escaped the nerf bat somehow. I don't know how that happened. As is tradition, if we recommend some OP tanks, it wouldn't be right if we didn't also recommend some tank shredders. So we got Master Yi. Master Yeezus has been doing well in Season 10 in general so far, but is about to do even better in 10.4. With the increase in tanks, Yee's gonna get some free jungle matchups where he just gets to freely scale, hit his items, and then get that easy pentakill. He's likely one of the highest single target DPS champions, even versus tanks due to all of his true damage. This tank meta is just so juicy for him. It's not just his matchups that are getting better though, it's also his teammates. I mean, I don't mean in terms of actual skill level, because in Yi main's eyes he doesn't have a team, but that enchanters will allow him to 1v9 easier, like Lulu, Yuumi, Janna, and of course Taric, which make him straight up unfair to play versus if he gets lead. That means you'll want to pick up Master Yi if you get the Exodia draft situation, where the enemy team's got some tanks and you have an enchanter that was listed above, and you'll just obliterate the enemy team. Speaking of Yuumi though, she's getting a lot of priority in high level solo queue and even in competitive play. Though her win rate isn't amazing yet, it should increase fairly soon once people relearn her, as she's been changed quite a lot recently. Ever since her last set of changes and her hotfix buffs, Yuumi has been pretty strong in the current meta, as she pairs really well with meta AD carries like Ezreal, Misfortune, or Lucian, but also some of the OP meta picks from other roles like Master Yi jungle or tanks like Orin, as they can never really die with the Yuumi attached to them, and she can help them engage. It just seems to me whenever this champion is even remotely playable, she sees play at a high level because she allows a single person who gets fed to carry way too hard due to her absurd utility from the healing, from the peel from her ultimate. She just provides a lot for a single person to just go ham. That means you'll want to pick up Yuumi, as she is the ultimate champion to learn if you want to get carried. You're just going to be able to take some breaks mid-game, grab a snack, or even do some push-ups, or I don't know, something. You got a lot of free time, do whatever you want. I should mention this as a disclaimer though, despite me just making fun of it and the whole community making fun of how easy and hands-off she is in terms of playstyle, she does have a decent initial learning curve on this version, so just keep that in mind. Coming at you next, one of the strongest solo queue tank junglers, we've got Rammus. Okay, so Ram, along with some of the other tank junglers like Zac, Nunu, or Amumu, are way overperforming on this patch. Even post-hotfix nerfs to Cinderhulk, they are still destroying solo queue. So what happened is, in an attempt to make tank junglers more viable and slow down the meta, Riot decided to buff their intended weakness of slow clear speeds and bad dueling power. So who would have guessed that they would become OP in a jungle environment that has low resources when you take away their main weakness? Rammus in particular though is doing really well for a couple of reasons. He's easily able to abuse the new Cinderhulk passive with his clear speed and in fights because he's got a lot of ways to proc it and it's pretty easy to do. There's also just so many melee champions and melee assassins in the meta who Rammus can just directly counter. The other is that it's popular to end up with AD heavy comps at the moment, and the last reason but not least is many ADCs in the current meta lack single target damage and ways to deal with Rammus, of course besides Vayne. Prime offenders of this are Senna and Misfortune, who just get absolutely murdered by Rammus, and even Jinx will struggle to zone him with traps as he can just kind of Tokyo drift around them and then kill her pretty easily 1v1. That means you'll want to pick up Rammus if you are gold or below and now you're trying to hit platinum. It might be one of the easiest decisions you've ever made. Our next pick will be one of my favorite champions, Ahri. Ahri is a champion who has issues in a meta like the current one, where she wants utility from slows to land charms on all the highly mobile melee champions, but she also needs the burst to one-shot the enemy backline and get picks, as she doesn't really have the DPS to teamfight properly in a frontline heavy meta. When you look at the two most popular builds for her at the moment, you'll note that she either goes full utility with Glacial Augment GLP or full burst with Luden's EKKO Electrocute. It's not that she's weak at the moment, but to solve some of her current issues and make her even stronger, many Ahri players over in China, including myself, although I'm in an A, has swapped to a new setup where you simply combine the best of both builds by going GLP, Oblivion Orb into Death Cap, as well as Electrocute. Personally, I think you can also throw in a Medjai's if you're snowballing, because if you're dying on such a safe champion when you're that ahead, it would be pretty embarrassing and you're likely going to lose that game anyway, so pick the Medjai's up. The good part about this build overall though is that it lets you snowball really easily in the early game due to your high burst and low cost on GLP compared to Ludens, allowing you to stay ahead of the damage curve and reach death cap on time so you can still one-shot people during the mid game. Now with the addition of GLP, you'll have more reliable pick potential and better teamfight utility, giving her more versatility overall, so I would pick up Ahri this patch for similar reasons as to why you're picking up EKKO, just a very solid, safe, consistent mid laner. And last up, we got the king of supports, Thresh. Thresh has a new build where he takes Gargoyle Stoneplate as his first and second item. This is great for him because he gets tanky really quickly and can protect himself in skirmishes and teamfights, allowing him to actually go in and not die instantly. One of Thresh's biggest weaknesses is how squishy he can be when Aftershock can't be procced because he's got really low base resistances due to him scaling with souls, but with this item you're not as squishy and you can actually go in once you've hit a hook. If you're picking up Thresh this patch, remember 3 things. 1 is he's not going to be easy, so expect some interesting games to start off with. 2 is you miss every shot you don't take, or something like that. 3 is always try and hit level 2 first so that you can look for an all-in. Though I'm joking a little bit about these 3 tips are pretty important. You will definitely struggle to learn him at first, needing around 50 games to see some okay results. Second, you shouldn't always be afraid to make plays on the champion, but of course you don't want to look like an idiot, so the safest and easiest way to make a play is to just always flash flay into box whenever it's up. This is one of the most infuriating combos because it has almost no counterplay and there's no way to react to it, so whenever you hit level 2 or level 6, look for this if the enemy is not close to the tower, and all you gotta do is just wait a little bit to make sure they don't flash your hook, and then it's pretty much good to go. That's it for our pick of the patch video for 10.4. Make sure to check out more Mobalytics content on this YouTube channel or on our website at mobalytics.gg. I'm Mortiarty, and I'll hopefully see you out on the Rift.